Hello and welcome to our Toronto. May is Asian Heritage Month, and there are many different ways to celebrate it, including through comedy. Vōng Shō is a Toronto comedian who's made it his mission to amplify the voices of Canada's Asian community through humor. He's produced an all-Asian comedy web series featuring 8 stand-up comics. It's called Fresh Rice, and it debuted this month.
The true Filipino religion is gossip, like crouching tiger, hidden Asian, you know?
And I'm half Indian, half Italian. Those are two very hairy cultures. And when you combine that DNA, it doesn't add, it multiplies.
Fresh Rice is a showcase for new Asian comedians who are very early on in their career. Some of them had only been doing comedy for about 3 months, all the way to about 2 years. And it was about giving them the opportunity to really be mentored and understand and learn comedy from professional Asian comedians, and then giving them the proper stage time.
Men assume that I'm a gold digger, which is ridiculous. Silver's fine.
I know a lot of people talk about representation on stage, which is important, and of course, all 8 of them are Asian. But it was also about representation off stage of the audience, because when you're first starting out in comedy, most of the time, you know, when you're doing comedy clubs, the audience is usually 80-90% white, if not 100%. And so I really wanted to give them an opportunity to perform in front of a predominantly Asian crowd, which is something I didn't get to do for the first 10 years of my career. So I was hoping that early on in their career, they could experience that.
The show was taped at the CBC's Glenn Gould studio in January of last year, just before the pandemic. Vōng decided it was better to hold off on premiering the show.
And originally, this was supposed to debut last year for Asian Heritage Month, but of course, all the social justice protests and everything happening in the world, we didn't want to take attention away from that. So we sort of stayed in post-production for an extra year. We really got to work on the editing, the color grading, making it as good as possible. And now we're debuting it this year.
Let's talk about some of the comedians who are part of the showcase. And I think the one who kicks everything off in the series is Anna Luo. Tell me a little bit about her and her kind of comedy.
Oh, Anna is amazing. There's a reason why she's kicking off there's a reason why her episode is first in the web series. I think her style of comedy is something that couldn't exist, maybe when I first started comedy 15 years ago. It's so refreshing.
But I was dog sitting last summer, and the dog got sprayed by a skunk. So I bathe him outside in tomato juice, and then a police car pulls up. 2 officers walk out towards me, and they go, "Ma'am, we got a report from your neighbor that someone is marinating their dog." Yeah, okay. What kind of Asian marinates their dog in tomato juice? If I was gonna season my pooch, best believe I'd be using Chinese spice.
Really, the show itself has a diversity of comedians, because when we say Asian Canadian, that in itself, you can break that down in a multitude of ways. So how did you select who would be part of the series?
Well, when we were first doing the submission process, definitely the first question I was getting is, what do you mean by Asian? Define Asian showcase. And so for me, it was always geographically Asian. If it appears on the world map under Asia, then it's a part of the showcase. We had submissions from, East Asia, Southeast Asia, Southern Asia, all the way to the Middle East. And we just wanted to represent all of that. And that's why we called it Fresh Rice, because I was trying to figure out what unites that region. And I was like, basically every country I could think of had their own form of rice, whether it's jasmine rice, basmati rice, glutinous rice, but I just found like we all ate rice.
So Cantonese is called Cantonese because you can't learn it. It's absolutely impossible. Do not even try. I will not give you lessons after the show. $25 an hour, but still,
I'll give you guys
80 comedians submitted material, hoping to be part of Fresh Rice. For Vōng, it was both a pleasant surprise and an unexpected challenge.
I did not know there were that many Asian comedians in Toronto, to be perfectly honest. And so at first I was really worried because, you know, in stand-up comedy, we're rejected so much because we always submit for things, which is a part of the business. But I kind of felt like, you know, it's one thing to be rejected for a big showcase or a comedy festival. It's another thing to be rejected by your own community, to be like, okay, I'm being rejected for an Asian showcase.
So, Vōng, already well known for producing monthly comedy shows featuring Asian talent, created 8 more shows with all the comedians who had auditioned, a way to showcase the diversity of talent in the Asian Canadian community.
So what do you think that says about where the industry's at?
You know, I think the industry is really, really changing. I think with the success of Asian comedians from Ali Wong to Ronnie Chang, I think it's really, it's really inspiring a new generation to come out and try stand-up comedy. And I think that's amazing. You know, I started out my career in Calgary, Alberta. And for the first 10 years of my career, I was the only Asian comedian. I never shared a stage with another Asian comedian. And I would be performing in these small towns where people would come up to me after the show and say, I've never met an Asian in real life before. Thinking about it years later, thinking about the submission process, I was just enamored that there were so many, fresh, young Asian comedians who wanted to get out there and tell their stories.
In 2021 now, releasing these episodes, the state of the world that we are in, what do you think the impact could be by showcasing comedy by Asian Canadians?
You know, right now, this moment with what's happening with the Stop Asian Hate movement, the increased attacks on, you know, Asian communities all around the world because of COVID-19 and a lot of the misinformation, you know, there's definitely a lot of ways to combat that. But as an entertainer, I wanted to figure out what part I could play. And for me, I sort of felt like, you know, laughter was the best tool that we have to sort of fight against bigotry and misunderstanding. Because, you know, it's a lot harder to be bigoted towards somebody if you know their story.
The Fresh Rice comedy web series airs on Vōng Shō's YouTube page, with a new episode premiering every Tuesday and Thursday throughout May.